It's Lee coming to you from PNP, Plug and Play, and I am joined by our newest member of the team, Tanisha.
Panastric.
What she said. And that's Polish, right?
It is. So half Polish and then the other half is Aussie.
Right, okay. Now, Tanisha, you've joined the Beach City team here in Jakarta, and you're going to help us this week for the next 5 days as we run around like chickens without heads. But can you just tell us a little bit about, you're from Perth, so tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in Perth. Did my university studies there as well and started my professional career over in the town, and then headed over to Melbourne for a short while before coming over to Jakarta. So I've been here for 1.5 years, currently working in the startup space with a venture capital firm called Convergence Ventures. So really, really enjoy my time with those guys. I get a nice broad exposure to everything that's happening here in the Indonesian startup space, which is really rewarding and really why I'm happy to kind of jump on board with you guys and do a bit over the next few days.
So VC is all about deal flow, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So did you sort of put a map on the wall and throw a dart and say Jakarta looks good, or how did that come about?
Sort of ended up here sort of for personal reasons, made the journey over, and it was only after coming here that I really fell in love with the space. So learnt more about what all the talent here is doing around startups and the activity as well. So as we'll learn more over the next few days, it's a really great place to be at the moment for people wanting to start a new venture, and there's so much opportunity in Jakarta. So getting that exposure, I couldn't help myself but want to stick around and be a part of it.
Yep. And so are you seeing different sort of styles of startups or different ideas, or is it similar? Are they solving different problems, or how do you compare the Australian ecosystem with the Indonesian one?
Yeah, I'd definitely say there's different ideas and different opportunities here happening in Indonesia. So Perth in Australia is where I'm from, so I always got a soft spot, but I think the opportunities and the activity here is a lot more vibrant. There's really great variety because, as I said, there's so many opportunities. There's so many sort of pockets within sort of just the environment and places that can be developed further. So I think the successful entrepreneurs here are doing a really great job identifying those opportunities and coming up with really interesting and creative solutions. So even within Indonesia, there is a broad range of startups and ideas, and a lot of them are having some really great success. So I guess we'll learn more over the next few days as well about those sort of hot topics and the industries that are really thriving. But it's such a great thing to see that it is so broad and varied.
Yeah. So, people talk about ecosystems. I mean, it's important to have ecosystems, that is, all the players that contribute to that. And I see some people think that they've got their own ecosystem. I'm a big believer in that we're just all part of one big global ecosystem, and we need to connect that to create efficient networks to help paths to scale and create networks. Do you think that's important?
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more on that point, I guess. It's interesting to be a part of it and see the differences in each ecosystem, and to sort of have that local knowledge and understanding to really be able to develop a product or service that is going to be doing well. But there's so much happening across the globe that transfer of knowledge and that sharing is really, really valuable. And so for myself, being from Australia and now being here, I'm really passionate about connecting the two ecosystems in particular. I can see that there's a lot of synergies and there's a lot of knowledge sharing in both directions that I think will be so valuable to both ecosystems.
That's what we're trying to do here. Yeah. Beach City's trying to do exactly that. So it's great that you joined us and help us do that. So from a VC perspective, obviously you get a lot of companies looking for investment. Some a little bit early, maybe some a bit late. Maybe it's another coffee app, which the world doesn't really need another coffee app in my opinion. But what are the main things that you look for when you're talking venture capital when you get approached by these early stage companies?
Yep, definitely. So on that point, I'd say our firm is looking at early stage investments. So for those later stage guys, they would have different things that they consider when making an investment decision, or simply just wanting to get to know a startup more at their sort of initial stages. But for us, looking at the early stage, I think it comes down to two key things, being the founders and the team, and then the market opportunity. So for a lot of the early guys, they're sort of still developing their ideas, really refining it, and And so in terms of traction and other type measures, it's still sort of in the works. So what we instead like to focus a little bit more on is the background, past experience and the caliber of the founders, what their passion and what their attitudes are as well to creating their solution. And also understanding the market. So for us, we're very Indonesia focused. So understanding in terms of what they want to be delivering, is there a place for it here, and how well are they addressing that demand?
So how important is global scale opportunities? So we see a lot of companies in Australia, say, oh, we're going to start in Sydney and then we're going to expand to Melbourne and we're going to spend. I'm sort of saying, start in Sydney by all means, but this is a global play, right? So what's your view on that?
I think having had the most exposure to what's happening in Indonesia, I think it makes a lot of sense to capitalise on the opportunities here. It does take quite a bit of tailoring and understanding the nuances of the Indonesian market, and so it won't necessarily be directly transferable to a lot of other places. Certainly there's synergies to expand across Southeast Asia, those kinds of things. But I think Indonesia, it's such a fantastic place. It's the 4th most populated country in the world. There's so many people here and so many needs and demands that can be addressed. So I think, say from an Australian perspective, it's certainly appealing to start formulating those ideas about that global expansion. I think for Indonesia, there's a lot of opportunity locally before looking overseas.
Yeah, fantastic. And so again, thanks for joining the team, and hopefully you can stick around after we leave and keep bringing us stories from Jakarta and Indonesia, and Bali is also on our radar. But for people that want to get in touch with the firm, the venture capital firm that you work for, where can they find them, and what's the name of that company?
So it's Convergence Ventures. They can find us on Google. We have a presence on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So if you Google that, it should come up.
And what about you? How can they find you? Are you on Instagram?
I'm on everything, as I think everyone is these days. So I think my name will appear in the tag to this video, because unfortunately it's not an easy one to spell. So you can look me up using my name, and my handle is my first initial and then my last name, just to make it as complicated as possible for everyone to find me.
So one of the funny things this morning was we're using WhatsApp, we're using Messenger, we're using Facebook, and the people here have been so fantastically supportive, trying to connect us with everybody. And I had this message pop up from somebody saying, "Oh, meet us here at 11 o'clock or whatever," and I could not find which messaging app it came through.
There's a lot here, and it's sort of part of the assimilation into Indonesia, certainly, and probably other areas of Southeast Asia. I connect with my friends back in Australia, and they have to download WhatsApp just so we can keep in touch. But yeah.
And here's a quick tip for you: if a taxi driver drops you off and says, "This is the place you're supposed to be at," it's probably not.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of those experiences as you sort of first arrive. So welcome to Indonesia.
Okay, and we're going to throw Tanisha in the deep end. She's going to do a couple of interviews for us very shortly. She doesn't know that. Well, she does. She does now. So stay tuned. Follow us at Beach City Life, and look us up on YouTube. Just search for Beach City.